Another one. Welcome to this house of memory and celebration. This is an intercultural service. One of our texts will be the 1988 film, The Milagro Beanfield War. We showed it on Friday and quite a few people showed up. So some of you have seen it recently and others may have seen it years ago. Come in, you who carry documents, and you who carry stories instead. Come in, you who crossed a desert, and you who crossed a street without ever wondering if it was allowed. We gather around a bean field, small, stubborn, alive, where water remembers the names of ancestors longer than it remembers pipes and permits. Here, miracles do not arrive with trumpets. They arrive as laughter, as shared meals, as someone quietly turning on the water. Let us worship the holy imagination, the kind that refuses to believe that scarcity is the final truth. Let us begin. Imagine carrying two identities in one body, one that cares for others freely and one that calculates constantly. Notice the effort this requires, how shoulders lift, how breath stays shallow, how joy pauses to check the door. Now, imagine a parade passing by, drums, colors, memory, dancing in the street. No one asks for proof. The body remembers before the mind does. In this moment, no borders, no files, no case numbers, just breath, rhythm, belonging. Stay in that place for a few breaths. Let courage return, the way water returns to a dry field, quietly, insistently, because that is what it does. Let us consider the daily experience of those living in the United States who speak different languages and don't look like they came over on the Mayflower. They may have been here for a very long time, like the old families of New Mexico, who were here before that landscape was incorporated into the country. The country of Mexico used to extend up to Montana. Still, we stole it fair and square, so it's America now. The 1988 movie, The Milagro Beanfield War, is a small dose of magical realism, a little humor, and a measure of compassion. My favorite detail is the coyote angel mentor figure who is visible to one of the old men of the village, just walks around like everybody else, and he talks to him. The angelic figure does not take action. He just gives advice. Must be Unitarian. He is a reminder that the ancestors are with us. If we care about a cause, all those who have worked on that issue before us lend their spirits. The state motto of New Mexico is the land of enchantment, although some of those who struggle financially, even from the oldest families, sometimes call it the land of entrapment. Now, since we're visiting a charmed landscape, I will tell you a story of prestidigitation. The famous Mexican magician, Marcos el Magnifico, is about to do his famous disappearing act. As the drum rolls with great flourish, el Magnifico begins to count. Uno, dos, and poof, he vanishes without a trace. There's no accounting for taste. The plot of our wisdom text centers on a humble bean field in the village of Milagro. One man, Joe Mondragon, turns on irrigation water for his beans without permission. That water belongs to somebody else. It says prohibited right on the little gate that opens. He actually opens it initially by mistake and then notices how the water is running down to his dry field and decides not to close it up again. It's a small act, a deeply human act, and a catastrophic act, at least from the perspective of lawyers, developers, and polite Anglo systems with clipboards and flowcharts. This is a story about water, land, belonging, and imagination. It is also about why Latinos, especially Hispanic, Mexican-American communities, are treated harshly in a society shaped by a different relationship to meaning, mystery, and control. The Milagro Beanfield War dramatizes a cultural collision between two perspectives. One prizes order, ownership, and abstraction. The other prizes story, relationship, and enchantment. One wants everything surveyed. The other wants everything remembered. Water in this story is never just water. The water of life is soul, it is life force, it is memory, it is ancestry, it is blessing. It is also a bureaucrat's nightmare in this story. The Anglo legal system treats water as a resource, quantified, allocated, insured, documented. The Hispanic community imagines water as participant in community life. Water can listen, water remembers, water carries grief and gratitude at the same time. In folk stories from the Southwest, water often appears as a testing figure. If treated with respect, it gives life. If treated as property, it withholds itself. The movie keeps returning to this wisdom without sermonizing. Water flows when it is honored. And we're not just talking about the kind of water you can drink here. We're talking about a symbol. Undocumented immigrants today are often treated the way the water is treated by the developers in the story, valuable only when it is controlled, feared when it flows freely, criminalized when it refuses to stay in its assigned channel. The bean field calls the whole community into relationship. Elders, citizens, children, spirits, tricksters, even bureaucrats who do not realize they are being initiated. There is humor everywhere in the tale. The invisible saints, the land grant activist who appears from nowhere, the Anglo bureaucrat slowly losing his grip on his tie and his worldview. Laughter in this film is resistance, the kind of resistance we need. And that is something that deeply unsettles the dominant culture, a people who laugh in the face of exclusion, who sing while being followed, who invoke ancestors. This feels dangerous to a system that relies on minorities who will internalize shame. Why the Hispanic imagination feels threatening to the Anglo-dominant culture is a bit of a mystery. The harsh treatment of immigrants cannot be understood solely through economics or policy. Those matter, but beneath them lies fear of a different way of being human. The Hispanic imagination featured in Milagro embraces sacred time alongside clock time, community memory alongside individual achievement, story as truth bearer, humor as survival, the porous boundary between living and dead. This imagination refuses a world stripped of soul, and when that imagination crosses borders, It exposes how thin the walls are around a worldview based on technocratic control. As one Mexican proverb says, they tried to bury us. They did not know we were seeds. And seeds, like beans, insist on life. From a psychological perspective, much of the anger toward undocumented immigrants is what we call projection. A society that has discounted its own rituals, its relationship to land, and its sense of communal meaning finds itself confronted by people who still carry these things. Envy lurks. Fear follows quickly behind. In Milagro, the Anglo characters are not villains so much as they are disconnected people. They have forgotten how to belong somewhere. They need permits to feel safe. They have severed their relationship to place, then react with suspicion toward those whose identities are rooted in land, language, and lineage. Immigrants remind us of what we have traded away. That reminder arrives without asking our permission. You know, at one time, new arrivals from Mexico were warned by family members who had been here a while. Don't tell the gringos how dead they are. You will notice a flatness, but don't say anything. It upsets them if you mention it. A related notion shows up in graffiti on the Tijuana side of the border wall, which is actually slats of steel. It reads, "Don't feed the gringos." Does that mean the U.S. is the cage? Does it reveal an awareness of how encapsulated Americans can be in their own culture, unable to see the vitality of their southern neighbors except as some barbaric threat? The case for humane treatment of undocumented immigrants does not require fear-based arguments or moral shock tactics. The Milagro story offers something stronger: recognition. Now, I know it's a little of a shuffle to talk about a story that's really about old families that have been here all along and bring that over to the issue of those who have arrived more recently, but the treatment is similar. Joe Mondragon is not asking for special treatment. This is the fellow that lets the water run into his field. He is asking for water to nourish beans. Immigrants are asking for dignity, safety, and the ability to contribute. A quote often attributed to Voltaire, probably inaccurately, which makes it even more fitting, says, "Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well." The story teaches that when we honor the imagination of other communities, we recover parts of our own humanity. The congregational read that we have just been involved in, Jose Antonio Vargas, the memoir Dear America, offers a devastating complement to the Milagro Beanfield War, where Milagro gives us magical realism and communal comedy. Vargas gives us interior realism, the daily psychology of living without papers in a country that feels like home and tribunal at the same time. Vargas describes undocumented life as a double consciousness, loving a country deeply while knowing that love is not reciprocated by its laws. The tension is shown in the experience of those portrayed in Milagro. In both cases, belonging lives in language, food, humor, land, and relationship. Papers arrive much later, if at all. What Vargas makes visible is the cost of invisibility. He writes about learning to manage fear, to keep his voice measured, to appear grateful, to let longing pass unnoticed across his face. This inner choreography is familiar to many families, especially mixed status families, who learn early how to translate themselves for institutions while remaining secretly fluent in another emotional language at home. From a psychological perspective, this is a prolonged encounter with the shadow of America, the split between democratic ideals and exclusionary practices. The courage shown by Vargas in his memoir was to stop managing that split silently. His decision to speak publicly parallels Joe Mondragon's act of turning on the water to irrigate a modest bean field. Both are small, ordinary gestures that reveal how much psychic energy goes into maintaining unjust systems. Applied to the Mexican-American experience, Dear America helps us see that undocumented status is not merely a legal condition, it is a spiritual strain. It presses people into hypervigilance, disrupts identity formation, and erodes the simple pleasure of saying, "This is where I belong," without fearing some kind of consequences. About a month ago, the local clergy association held an interfaith vigil for lament, solidarity, and peace in support of those threatened by ICE. I wrote a piece, a poem, for the gathering. It is called Together. I will read it for you. We cry out in lamentation for those in our community whose days are haunted by sudden footsteps, sharp commands, doors flung wide before dawn's first breath. No one stands apart. The terror that visits one household reaches the whole community. Heartbreak knows no borders. When one child hides under a table, the heavens themselves draw tight in anguish. When one mother is torn from her doorway, the angels feel the sorrow. We see agents wearing the armor of indifference, their helmets gleaming with cold resolve, their voices sharpened like spears against the innocent dawn. They wrench the father from his harvest fields. They scatter families whose only crime is seeking shelter in a weary land. We feel pulled into the deep ache of human kinship. We feel drawn toward every person whose life has been upended in an instant by threat that comes in uniform. We are drawn by the simple truth that suffering anywhere summons the conscience everywhere. So here, in the light of vigil, with lamps of hope burning, we make our vow to bear one another's burdens, to steady those who tremble, to keep alive the dream that cruelty need not be humanity's teacher forever. We gather together with the promise, with resolve, with faith, that hand in hand together, with courage in our bones and peace in our breath, together we can work for justice together. As we approach Cinco de Mayo, let us remember that the holiday commemorates resistance. It honors a community that refused to be dominated. Music, dance, food, ceremony, or how struggle remains human. For immigrants, celebration is part of endurance. If you have ever danced while tired, sung while afraid, or laughed when you were not sure how things would turn out, you already understand. Cinco de Mayo is more than a spectacle. It is medicine. For undocumented people living under threat, public celebration becomes an act of courage. Music, color, ritual, and laughter temporarily reverse the internal pressure of being unwelcomed. The nervous system exhales. The body remembers joy without permission. Cultural affirmation interrupts the shame loop that invisibility generates. Cinco de Mayo festivities do not erase oppression. Neither did the Beanfield episode solve imperialism. What these moments do is sustain psychic life. They remind people, especially the undocumented, that they are more than legal categories. They are heirs to resistance narratives, collective memory, and creative survival. As one Mexican saying puts it, we survive because we celebrate. A word now to those organizing, protesting, volunteering, showing up week after week. You know, martyrdom isn't required. It can be done in joy. The movie's magic realism reminds us that the psyche needs nourishment, humor, rest, relationship, time off, saints who appear unexpectedly to tell you to take a nap. It is a long struggle. Go easy on the impatience. Find compassion for your own limits. Do not take it all on your personal shoulders. Resistance has to be collective action if it is to make any difference. It is a bit grandiose to think that any of us personally have to solve injustice all by ourselves. You are not alone. There are other laborers in the field. So here is some revolutionary advice. Drink water. Eat beans. Turn off the news occasionally. Laugh with people who remember who you are. As one saying goes, you cannot pour from an empty cup unless you are a mystic, and it gets messy if you do that. Anyway, some action steps. I've got 6 today. Track your own projections. Notice where irritation toward chaos or disorder might be grief for your own lost connection. 2, practice cultural reverence. Attend a Cinco de Mayo event somewhere, as a listener, as an observer. Watch without translating everything into analysis. 3rd, restore wonder. Read a folk tale. Watch a film like this Milagro thing. Let non-rational meaning back into your attention. Next one, laugh on purpose. Humor is how seriousness remains livable. Next, protect your nervous system. Activism requires sustainability. Schedule rest with the same seriousness as you plan meetings. Next, tell encouraging stories. Share stories of neighbors, artists, caregivers, elders, immigrant friends. Stories reshape policy climates long before votes do. In the Milagro Beanfield War, the miracle is that a community remembers how to stand together in imagination. May we learn from this story. May we treat immigrants as carriers of memory and music. May we let more water flow than seems reasonable. And may we remember, especially during Cinco de Mayo, that dignity dances, justice sings, and the soul of a people cannot be deported.